Today's daf Bezos Hashem is Masechta Avodah Zarah daf Mem Gimel number 43, and we will begin from daf Mem Beis Amid Beis. It's about the last third of the Amid. Mankit Rav Sheshes Chumrim Masnisim Betani. So the Gemara discusses like this: Mankit Rav Sheshes Chumrim Masnisim Betani. Rav Sheshes held he had in his possession a very difficult brisa, and he couldn't figure it out. And so what the Gemara is going to do is try to figure it out. The brisa says like this: Kol hamazolas mutared, any type of constellation is mutter. In other words, let's say, I don't know what it's talking about. You're allowed to hold, here's the constellations. Here's the picture of the constellations, the Gemini, Taurus, all the pictures of these constellations. So the Brisa says all the mazolis are mutarim. Chutz mimazal chamal levana. There was a certain drawing image that represented the sun and the moon. That's prohibited. We're gonna l'chol hapartzufim mutarim. Any type of figure of a face is permitted. Chutz mipartzuf adam, except the face of a man. L'chol hatzuris mutaris, and every shape is permitted. Chutz mitzuris drakain, except the picture of the dragon. So here's a dragon, and this is Aser. So what does this brisa mean? What's going on over here? So let's explain. Amamar. So we learned in the brisa like this: Kol hamazolos mutaris chutz mimazal chamal levana. That what are we talking about? What are we talking about over here? Every constellation is permitted except the constellation of the sun and the moon. If a guy is drawing a picture, so you're allowed to draw a picture of the mazolos, but except the sun and the moon. Hi, Lewis, we just began. So we learned in the Brisa that the Brisa said that you're allowed to have the mazel, any other constellation, except the constellation that represents the sun and the moon. So if we're talking about somebody who's making it, Iba Oisa, Kol HaMazolis Mishari, is it permitted to make an image of any of the constellations? Well, Ksiv, there's a pasuk that says, Loi Sasin Itin. You're not allowed to make a picture of anything that's with God. So we darshan Loi Sasin Kedmus Shamshe Am Shamshe Lefone B'Morim. One's not allowed to make a form that represents the forms that you see way out in outer space. We're not talking about you're serving it. Just to draw it is asur. So how is a person allowed to draw any of the mazolis? Alapshita, it must be like this. B'moitze, if you find a vessel and it has an image of the mazolis on it, then it's permitted. That's what it means, because the goyim didn't serve that as an avodah zarah. So if you find any, let's say a vessel, a cup that has an image of any of these constellations, it's permitted. And that is aligned with our Mishnah. Hamoitzi kelim, if a person finds a vessel, ve'aleim tzuras chama v'tzuras levana, if it has the shape of the chama, the shape of the moon or the sun, tzuras drakain, or if it has the image of a dragon on the cup, so then that cup was used for an avodah zarah. That vessel was used for an avodah zarah. Yelichem liyam hamelech, throw it into yam hamelech. But not if you find it has something else, a picture of any of the mazals on it. Says the Gemara, if the first part of the brisa is talking about you find it, let's see the middle of the brisa. Kol hapartzufin mutarin chutz mi partzuf adam. It's every face is permitted except having the face of a man. Iba might say, if you're finding it, if you just found a face of a man, Parsif Adami Aser, is it prohibited to hold the picture of a man? Well, tonight we learned in the Mishnah, if you find it with any of these pictures on it, then you throw the vessel out. Tzuras draken in. If it has a picture of a dragon on the vessel, then you throw it out. Parts of Adam, let's say you have a mug with a picture of a man on it, you don't have to throw it out. So what does the Brisa mean? That if you find something that has the figure of a man, a picture of a man, a face of a man in it, you have to get rid of it. Alapshita Brisa. The middle of the Brisa must be talking about you're making it. Like Rav Huna B'Rei says, Rav Huna B'Rei Yeshua says a person's not allowed to even draw a picture of a man. Says the Gemara, if you're drawing a picture of a man, a masefa. Let's take a, if it's talking about you making it, how does the end of the brisa work out? Kol atzuras mutaras chutz mitzuras draken. The brisa says any figure is mutar except the shape of a dragon. The iba ois, if you're making it, so tzuras draken mi aser, to make a dragon is that aser? The pasuk says, "Loy satis itin al hechesav leisov." Torah says, "Don't make a copy of iti, of something that's with me." So we darshan hani, those things that are in outer space. Then you're not allowed to draw it. Tzuras dragon, but to make it, just draw a picture of a dragon, loy, that's not a problem. So elipshita must be b'maitzi. You're talking about you're finding it. If you find a keli with a dragon on it, then you know that the goyim used that keli as an avodah zarah, and you can't keep it. If you find the kalim and it has a tzuras achama, so then you're not allowed to keep it. If it has or a truest dragon, you're not allowed to keep it. So it comes out that we have three parts to this brisa, and we're saying that each part of the brisa alternates. Reish of a sefer, the first part of the brisa and the end part of the brisa is b'moitze. A person finds a vessel. You find a vessel with the picture of the constellation of the sun and the moon, and you find a vessel with the picture of a dragon. Umitziyasa, but the middle one is ba'isa, when you're drawing pictures, where the brisa says that you're not allowed to draw a picture of a man. So that's very hard to say that a brisa is not in one uniform situation. Amar Abai, and you're gonna have to say it's true. Reisha v'seifa b'maitzi. The first part and the end of the brisa is talking about you find it. Umitziyasa ba'isa, in the middle of the brisa is talking about he makes it. Rava says kula b'maitzi. Rava says the whole brisa is talking about the maitzi. You find it. Now the question is, if you find it, if you find a vessel, a mug with a picture of a human being on it, how could it be asur? Why does the brisa say it's asur? And says the Gemara, there is an opinion that holds that way. Umitziyasa Rabbi Yehuda the Tanan Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanya we learned in the brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Ma'isa. Rabbi Yehuda adds, after Manus Meneka, if you find a vessel with the picture of a nursing woman, so that represents the Christian religion with a woman that's nursing. So that cup may have been used for avodah zarah. The sar apis. So I didn't know what sar apis is, but if I have it from Serapis is a cult of a god in Egypt and the Greek world, and it looks like this. So if you have a picture or something, or if you find this picture that you see on your screen, that was an avodah zarah that represented somebody that feeds the world. So Menika represents a woman that's giving nursing a kid. Al Shem Chava Shemenika Kol Olam Kuloi. It represented Chava that nursed the entire world, the first woman. Sarapis Al Shem Yosef, it was named after Yosef because it has something to do with Egyptians. Sar Umephis is Kol Olam Kuloi. He was the ruler and he fed the entire world. So therefore, if you find a picture on the vessel of a sarapis or manika, those are human forms, then you know that human was used as an avodah zarah. V'ho denaka geriva v'kakayel, that case of sarapis has to be holding a measuring stick and he's, giving food away. So that's an indication that it's the avodah zarah. And he denakta bein v'komanika. And the woman is holding a son and just nursing it. So, and you can actually see the nursing mother. Those types of pictures, if you find it on a vessel, then it's asur. But if you find a picture of a baseball player on a vessel, then it's not asur because no one's using that as an avodah zarah. Now, the Gemara wants to know what's a dragon. We said that if you find a vessel with a picture of a dragon on it, so then that vessel was used as an avodah zarah. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Eza Tzuras Draka, in what is called a dragon. Perish Rab Shimon ben Elazar, Kol Sheyesh Lo Tzitzim ben Parokov. It has fins coming out of its back, like I could see in the picture over here. It has these like fins coming out of its back. And the other Mandiyama is going to hold that it has fins on the back of its neck or something like that, or by the neck. That's Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Kol Sheyesh Rabbi Yasi Ahmed ben Pirkei Tzavar, by the vertebrae of the neck. Amma Rab Chama bar Chanina alak Rab Shimon ben Elazar. The halakha is like Rab Shimon ben Elazar that holds that it has, in order for it to be worshipped as an idol, I guess, the picture of the dragon had to be that it has fins coming out of its neck. Amma, now the Gemara tells us a beautiful story. Amma Rabba Babachona Amma Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, Pam acha sayisi mahalach acha Rab Loza hakapa beribi. One time, I was walking after Rab Loza hakapar, and beribi, he's a great man, Rab Loza hakapar, baderach. Umotza sham, and Rab Loza hakapar found there tabas, a ring. Valeha, on the ring was tzuras drakain, was a dragon. So that was an Avodah Zarah type of ring. So there's a mitzvah to get rid of Avodah Zarah. It's not just, for great people, when they find an Avodah Zarah, to smash it like Avram Avinu. So first he said, Umatza goy katan, I found a young child, a goy, v'loy amaloi klum. And he said, you know what? I don't want him to say anything. Then Matza goy gadol, then he found an adult goy, v'amalai, and he told the goy, Batla, I want you to nullify this ring, that it's not an Avodah Zarah, because only a goy can be mavatal an Avodah Zarah. V'loy bitra, the goy did not want to do it. So the Gemara says, Satarai, Rab Loza Kappa slapped him across the face, ubitloy, and then he was mavatalip. He figured he has no choice. I guess Rab Loza Kappa was a big man, and he whacked a guy across the face in order to him to mavatal the Avodah Zarah. And now Shmamina Tlas. So we see three things from that story. Shmamina, from here we see goy mavatal Avodah Zarah shaloi v'shal chaveira. A goy can be mavatal any Avodah Zarah. Not only it's his, if it belonged to his friend, because the guy that they found on the street was being mavatal the guy that Rabbi Leza HaKapor found in the street. So it wasn't his Avodah Zarah, and yet he trusted him that he could be mavatal it. He could be mavatal it. Now, Ushmamina, and from here we see Yidea betiv shel Avodah Zarah mishamsheh mavatal v'she'eni yidea betiv Avodah Zarah mishamsheh ein mavatal. Only a guy that's over bar mitzvah, so to speak, or is an adult who understands what Avodah Zarah is, he can be mavatal the Avodah Zarah, but not a young child. So that's why when he saw a young child, he didn't tell him anything. Ushmamina, goy mevatal bal karchai. That a goy could nullify even if it's against his will. If you force a goy to be mevatal on Avodah Zarah, it's still going to be effective. And that's what despite that he whacked him, the guy nevertheless was mabatal the Avodah Zarah, and it's a good bittul. Now the Gemara asks a question: why did you bichlal have to be mabatal the Avodah Zarah? Wasn't the guy that lost that ring? He gave up. He was miyayish on it, right? He gave up hope. So that's in itself like he's mabatal the Avodah Zarah. Megadav bar Rab Chanina had a complaint. Less late, Rab Loza Kappa Beribi Hodatanan. Does Rab Loza Kappa agree with this Mishnah, Elim Mitzias? Hamatzal min Ariyah min Adayv min Anomer, Umin Agayas min Anor, Mizuta Shiyam. Somebody finds a lost item in the mouth of a lion and a bear, or from a leopard, or from an army, and from a river, or from a flood. He finds if you find an item that's lost on Fifth Avenue, so you're allowed to keep it. The Baal gave up hope that he'll ever find it. So why did Reb Lazar bar Kappa say to get another guy to mevatel this Avodah Zarah? The one that lost it in the first place certainly gave up hope to finding it, and therefore that's almost like he was mevatel it himself. The owner was mevatel it. Answers the Gemara, Amar Abaya, a guy that loses something, an Avodah Zarah, the minam miyayish, he gives up hope, true, misara miyayish, but he doesn't give up hope that it's an Avodah Zarah. Meima Amar, he says to himself, if a guy is going to find my Avodah Zarah ring, miflak polachle, he's going to bow to it. Yisrael mashkechla, if a Jew is going to find it, so a Jew is going to do business with it. I did the Damer Yakar because it's an expensive ring, right? It's a very expensive ring. Mezabinla, he's going to sell it Lagoy. Upalachla, he's going to sell it to another guy to serve it. So therefore, the guy never gave up that it's still a valid Avodah Zarah, and that's why Reb Lazar Kappa needed somebody to mevatel it. Now the Gemara discusses something we learned in Masechta Rosh Hashanah. Tanan Hasan, we learned over there, To Musris Levanis Hoyele Rabbi Gamliel Beliasai Betavla Bekoisel. Rabbi Gamliel had pictures of the moon in his attic, and Shebehen Maras had Yoitis, for he would show the Adim, the simple Adim, who didn't know how to describe to Rabbi Gamliel that they saw the new moon. He would say to them, Kizari Isim or Kizari Isim, did you see the moon look like this or that? So basically, Rabbi Gamliel had let's say a Lego item that was shaped like the moon. So, and he had to make that, right? So if he made it, he made a picture of the moon, not as an Avodah Zarah, but we already learned that just to make something like that should be asur. So that's the Gemara's question. How was Rabbi Gamliel allowed to do that? Umi Shari, would it be permitted for Rabbi Gamliel? For Ksiv, the pasuk says, "Leisasin iti, leisasin kidmush shamosham sham shalafonai." One is not allowed to make a form of something that's in the heavens that serves God, so to speak, like the picture of the sun and the moon. So how was Rabbi Gamliel allowed to have that in his attic? Answers the Gemara, Omar Abaya explained, the first Abaya tries to say that the Torah only means that you cannot make a life-size image of something that serves God. Well, you obviously can't make a life-size image of the moon and the sun. So what is the Torah referring to? Tanya, like we learned in the Brisa. You're not allowed to make a personal Beis HaMikdash. Layasa Odom Bayis, a person is not allowed to make his house Tavnis HaHechel, in the shape of the sanctuary in the Beis HaMikdash. Ach Sadra, you can't make a portico Tavnis Ulam, in the shape of the Ulam, which was part of the Beis HaMikdash. Chotze, you're not allowed to build a courtyard Tavnis Azara, like the Azara that was in the Beis HaMikdash. Shulchan, Tavnis Shulchan, you can't make a table looking like the table that was in the Beis HaMikdash. Menorah, Tavnis Menorah, or a menorah at the shape of a menorah. Lahavdil, people make their houses look like the White House. They make, a carbon copy. So to do that and make a Beis HaMikdash and wherever you live, that's the Isra of Loisas and Iti. And therefore you can't make a Shulchan menorah, Avalu Oisa Shel Hey V'Shel Vav. You can make a menorah of 5 candelabras or 6, V'Shel Ches or 8, V'Shel Zayin Lo Yasa. Don't make one of 7. Even if it's made out of any other metal. We know that the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash was only made out of gold. So maybe I can make one out of silver. So no, because since b'diavad, the menorah would be kosher if it was silver. So you're not allowed to make a silver menorah with 8 candelabras. But wood, you are allowed to. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda Oima, Avshel Eitz Lo Yasa. A person is not allowed to make it even out of wood. Like the Chashmonoim, when they were victorious over the Greeks, they had to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. They rebuilt temporarily a wooden menorah. So we see that you are allowed to make a wooden menorah. So they told Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, that's not true. You're not allowed to make a wooden menorah. Shom Raya, Shpudim Shel Bazoya, it was really made out of metal. The Choichvin Bavatz, they covered it with tin. It sounded like wood, so people told over the story wrong. But Batz means they covered it with tin. Hashiru, when they became wealthy, also shel kasef. They took it out and made it of silver. Chazav Hashiru, when the Jews became wealthier, asun shel zav, they made it out of gold. So bottom line, Abaya answered. Question was, how did Rabbi Gamliel have pictures of the moon and models of the moon in his attic? The answer is, you're not allowed to make it. Yeah, there's no Isser to make it, says Abaya. The only Isser that the Torah is referring to, like Sas and Iti, is not to make a replica in wherever you live of the Beis HaMikdash and any kalim of the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Gemara. So basically, if something you can't make a life-size image of, it's permitted. That means you're allowed to make a model of the sun and the moon. For Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, like Sas and Iti. The Brisa clearly says you're not allowed to make anything that's in the heaven, in the heaven. So you're not allowed to make a model of the moon. So how was Rabbi Gamliel allowed to make a model of the moon? Amar Abaya said, we go to Amid Beis, Loi Asra Torah Ella B'Demus Dalaponim Bahade Adodi. So the Torah didn't only disallowed you to make this image of one figure that has the face of a man, an ox, a lion, and an eagle, as you can see on the screen. This was represented something with the Kisei HaKavod. So in Yecheskel, that the cherub had 4 faces. That's the issa to make. But you're allowed to make a picture of the moon. That's what the Torah asked. So the Gemara says, if that's what it means, you're not allowed to make one figure that has 4 faces, parts of Adam l'chudei tishtri, you should be allowed to make the figure that of one man. Alamatanya, then why do we learn in the Brisa, kol partzufos mutarim chutz min partzuf Adam? You're not allowed to make any, you're not allowed to make, and according to Baya, this was the way you explained the Brisas. You're allowed to make any figure except the figure of a human being. And so, and you just told me that the Torah only asked it if you made 4 figures into one: the lion, the eagle, the ox, and the man. Amar Yehuda, Bereid Rav Shua, Mepirkei Abaya Shmili, that's supposed to be Abaya. That means Loisasin Iti, you're right. Making a figure of a man has a special Isser. Loisasin Oisi, don't make me. So you're not allowed to make me. So that means that, yes, a man, God sometimes appears in Tanakh in the shape of a human. I don't know exactly, but that's the way it is. And therefore, you're not allowed to make a human. So that's what it means. Don't make me, where I sometimes appear in Nevuah in the shape of a form of a man, don't make me. So says God, which is strange, but that's what it is. But any other figure, but the moon, that you're permitted to make. You're just not allowed to make a human form. Says the Gemara, obviously God doesn't have a shape or form, but you're not allowed to make the human figure. But any other thing in heaven you're allowed to make. Says the Gemara, other things in heaven you're allowed to make. I'm allowed to make a model of the moon. But Tanya, we learned in the Brisa again. Loisasin iti, loisasin kenemusha mosam shamshu lefonim b'moraim, kigoin ifanim b'shrafim chayis hakodesh mlachei sharish. You're not allowed to make. The Brisa says clearly, you're not allowed to make an image that represents an angel, that represents the fiery angels that are in heaven, that's somehow surrounding God. So presumably, you're also not allowed to make something. You're not allowed to make the moon. Amar Abaya said, that Torah only asked you to make an angel, but the moon and the sun, that's permitted to make, because they are in the lower chambers, the lower heavens. Says the Gemara, mishari, something that lives in the bottom heaven, in the solar system. Is that permitted? Vatanya, we learned in a Brisa, Asher b'shemayim, loisasan asher b'shemayim bo'al, l'rabais chama ulevana kachav v'mazalais. You're not allowed to make anything in the solar system, the moon, and the sun. Here it clearly says sun and stars. Mimal l'rabais malach hasharis. Then you're also not allowed to make an angel. So again, the question is, how was Rabbi Gamliel allowed to make that moon? Answers the Gemara, Kitanyahi, that Bryce is talking about Avodah, if you can actually worship it. In other words, you're not allowed to make it to worship. But Rabbi Gamliel didn't make it to worship. So says the Gemara, Ila Avodah, if that pasuk is talking about to serve it, I feel a shishon katanami, you're not allowed to make a little worm. Why does the Bryce say that you're not allowed to make the sun and the moon? Ein Chanami says the Gemara. We say for the Quran Afka, the Brisa does tell you that you're not allowed to even make a worm to serve, to use it as an idol. Tanya, we learned to the Brisa, Ashabaritz, the Rabbis, Yam, Naharis, Harim, Ugvoyis, Mitachas, the Rabbis, Shilshak, anything on earth you're not allowed to make, even rivers, mountains, hills, and even the Mitachas, what's underneath earth, even a little worm. So a Jew is not allowed to go into the Avodah Zarah business, even if he's manufacturing worms that are going to be used, fake worms that are going to be used for Avodah Zarah. But Rabbi Gamliel, all he did was have a little simple model of the moon. So that is permitted. So the Gemara still is knocking heads on this. Vasiyasa Gredasa Mishari, was Rabbi Gamliel permitted to have the moon by itself? Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, Leisasin iti, leisasin k'nemush shamosam sham shafona baroima k'goyim chamo ulevonim k'chavim mazolis. Here, the brisa is the clearest brisa, and it's very absolute. The brisa, he says you're not allowed to make, not to serve it, but this pasuk says don't make it at all. Anything that is in the solar system. That means like the moon, the sun, and stars, or any star, or any constellation. So again, you're not allowed to make a model of the moon. So how did Rabbi Gamliel make one? Answers the Gemara. Shani Rabbi Gamliel is very different. Other people made it. He didn't make it. Says the Gemara, was he allowed to keep it? Rabbi Yehuda had a situation where other people made him something, and he had to damage it in order people shouldn't accuse him that he's going to serve it. Shmuel, his rabbi, said to his student Rabbi Yehuda, "Shinin, my sharp one, Same ain't did none. You have to knock out its eye." In other words, Rabbi Yehuda had a signet ring that was sticking out, and therefore it looked like, even though Rabbi Yehuda used it to sign papers with it, to seal papers with it, his rabbi told him just take away, make a dent on it, or chip away at it, because people might think you're serving it. So the Gemara says Hassam over there, Rabbi Yehuda had chasame balait, because his protrusion from his ring was sticking out, umishum chashada, and people would be choshed him that he serves the ring. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, tabas, a ring shechasame balait, that the picture on the ring sticks out. Asal anichi, you're not allowed to put it on, obviously, because people are going to accuse you that you're going to serve that ring, because it has a picture of it has an expressed image of a form. But you're allowed to seal it on wax, because then it forms the form, into the wax, but now it doesn't stick out. But if your ring is sunk in, then you can put it on. You're not allowed to sign in it. So therefore, als chashad. So the Gemara says, so therefore, if you have a ring, or if you have any image, even it's not Avodah Zarah, you're not allowed to have it, because people are going to accuse you for serving it. Says the Gemara, are we concerned about people are going to accuse you for serving it? Well, Bekinishta the Shaf Yosef, there was this shul called Shaf Yosef in Nardoy. Listen to this. The Oikme Be Andarta, they put a statue into the shul. And the father of Shmuel and Levi would go daven in that shul. We're not going to chosh them that they're going to serve the statue. So when do you draw the line? Answers the Gemara, Rabim Shiny. Rabim is different. If there are many people in the shul, then we're not going to make a whole shad that people are going to serve that statue. So it could be in the shul. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Gamliel Diyachad Hava, Rabbi Gamliel was an individual. So how was he allowed to have a statue of the moon in his attic? Answers the Gemara, since he was the president, a lot of people hung around his attic, so that's like a thoroughfare, and therefore is not a problem of chashad. So basically, the first teretz of the Gemara is that the pictures, the models of the moon that Rabbi Gamliel had was actually somebody else made it. And we don't tell Rabbi Gamliel to get rid of it, because a lot of people are going into Rabbi Gamliel's attic, and therefore nobody's going to accuse Rabbi Gamliel from worshiping it. If you want, I can tell you the Prakim Hava. Really, Rabbi Gamliel made it himself, but this was like a puzzle that could easily be taken apart. So then Rabbi Gamliel was allowed to have it. When does the Torah say don't make a model of the moon? Is if it's a one-piece model of the moon. But if it's pieces that can be taken apart, like a Lego, then it's permitted. The Ibai said, if you want, I can tell you, L'Islamit Shani. Rabbi Gamliel was allowed to make it because he's using it as a teaching instrument. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, you're not allowed to learn how to do the Avodah Zarah. You could learn all about Avodah Zarah, lahavin, to understand how the Goyim serve their Avodah Zarah, to understand and to teach what's going to be asa for a yid to do. So therefore, since Rabbi Gamliel had this levana as a teaching instrument, he was allowed to make it. Then the Gemara, let's just finish up over here another half a minute. Rab Shimon Gamliel says if you find an image on a respectable place on the vessel, then it's used for Avodah Zarah. If it's on a not respectable place on the vessel, then it's not used for Avodah Zarah. Amarav muchbadim l'mala min hamayim. What it means is if on a respectable place on the vessel, it means it's above the water line, where the water doesn't heat up over there. It's like towards the top of the pot. Then it's a Asr digakela. Muvuzin, if they put the picture lamatam and bayim, let's say on the bottom of the vessel, so that's in an ugly place to put the picture. So that's not a keli that's used for avodah zarah. Shmuel says that's degrading. What's called a mechubediga, a respectable vessel. Sha'al hasherim. If there's a picture of an avodah zarah on a bracelet, a nezaman, a nose ring, al tabayis on a regular ring, that's what's respectable. And therefore, if you find something like that, you got to get rid of it. Tanya kavas Shmuel. The brisa aligns itself with Shmuel. Mechubadim. What's a respectable place to put that you find the picture of an avodah zarah? Shal sherim, valan nezaman, valan tabayis. If it's on a bracelet, nose ring, or a regular ring. Muvazim, if it's degrading, shal yerv, al kuskamas, val chamemayim. If it's on a kumkum, on a pot, or anything like that, vashas dinim, on a napkin, val mitbachais, or on a towel, any type of image that's on one of these kalim, you don't have to be concerned that it was used for avodah zarah. But if you find an image that was on a respectable keli, like a piece of jewelry, then you could assume that it was used for avodah zarah, and you're not allowed to benefit from it. Okay. Good Shabbos.